Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin has met for the first time in the U.S. leader's young presidency, an encounter that was marked by different accounts of issues discussed. Of course, there are some common ground and areas of disagreement. The meeting, which was held in Germany on the sidelines of the G20 summit, was scheduled to last 35 minutes, but went on for more than 2 hours. The meeting was an exclusive, closed-door one, but what was discussed remains an open question. Topics and issues predicted including terrorism, Syria and Ukraine, but after the historic meeting, the U.S. media and political world can get past its obsession with Russia-gate, focusing on Russia's alleged meddling in the 2017 U.S. presidential election.
There is a lot of conflicts between U.S. and Russian interests on a lot of fronts, one of which is in Syria. So I don't think the meeting between Trump and Putin can solve those concrete issues. Right after the meeting, we know that there are further revelations about the secret contact between Trump's son and his son-in-law with a Russian lawyer, talking about some of the potentially damaging information during the campaign. So obviously, this meeting has not solved the problem of Trump's domestic legitimacy. So I think the significance of the meeting is limited.
As Professor Wu has pointed out, there was not much substance because it usually requires detailed, advanced preparation from both sides, something which could not and did not happen due to intense pressure from Trump's political opponents and even from several of his own advisors who wanted no meeting at all. But the first meeting between President Trump and Putin achieved potentially life-saving progress on the Syrian crisis, which is likely to rebuild the image of Russia, something that Putin has been trying to do very hard for the past years. But from the strategy standpoint, it's not clear that the United States is getting anything out of the agreement. President Donald Trump hailed this agreement as an important step that would serve to save lives. But few details of the accord have been made public. As an anonymous State Department official put it, the agreement represents, at best, a modest advance in ending the conflict. But according to the expert we interviewed, the root cause of the conflict between Russia and the United States doesn't just lie in Syria, but also Ukraine, which was probably not discussed during the two leaders' first date.
You can see why the U.S. and the Russia relationship deteriorated. Why? Not because Syria, but because Ukraine. So 2014, when the Russian intervened in Ukrainian issues, so that's why America and the European countries imposed sanctions on Russia. And they want to prevent Russia continuing to intervene in eastern Ukraine issues.
Trump and Putin also agreed to set up a joint body to deal with cyber security to ensure there will be no possible attacks on electoral processes in either country. More generally, what seems to have been achieved at the Putin-Trump meeting was agreement on procedures to begin a normalization of bilateral relations. This time, Trump didn't make his guest wait, even though he insisted he pressed Putin on some tough, hardline issues. No agreements on anything specific as yet, but the identification of outstanding issues, and both sides have agreed to enter into detailed discussion to find solutions. This could be a turning point in relations, and maybe that's why Putin insisted on meeting with Trump ahead of the G20 summit, despite opposition from some advisors from his own camp.
Another group of Trump, also within Trump's cabinet, and they're strongly against this. And particularly when people investigate the Russian gate, and Trump have to be better for Trump to keep a distance from himself and Russia, so that can prove he didn't have any back channels or any deal with the Russian, and particularly under current the political atmosphere, Trump have to be very cautious. So they strongly urge Trump, you better not to meet Putin at the G20 summit.
But in the foreseeable future, the anti-Russian sanctions will remain in place, and the major power blocs of the United States and Europe on one side, and Russia and China on the other side will vie for influence and keep their distance from one another for many years to come. It also bears to mention that the Russians were bemused by the criticism of Trump from American journalists and other attendees of the G20 summit for being incompetent. This fact curbed Russian expectations that anything promised by Trump could actually be realized. So it turns out that the Syrian issue may be just a test for both sides, as Trump wants to know if he can cooperate with Putin to some extent, or he has to find some other ways altogether, while Putin has to decide for himself if he can trust Trump for being able to deliver what he has promised.